Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gaming Daddy channel. Thank you so much for clicking the video. Before we jump into the Skyscraper video, I wanted to give a few comments. For those of you who had to bear through the bad audio of my last video, I appreciate you so much. Sorry about that. And then also the gameplay that I'm using is very old gameplay. Sometimes I do it on purpose to troll and see how bad I used to be at some of the missions. This was when Legendary first came out and everybody was suffering. So before I get a lecture on how to play Legendary, please note that, all right? I'm not trying to, hurt your eyes. I'm just kind of trolling you to see if you kind of notice what's going on. And many of you do, so I commend you for that. All right. Today, I'm going to be talking about Skyscraper and the new mode that has been at first rumored and then talked about for Tom Clancy's The Division game. This is the mode that's supposed to be some kind of an unending wave spawn of enemies, and it's very similar to a mode from The Division 1 called Resistance. Now, some of you that played the Division 2 right now, you did not play the Division 1 and you did not watch or, see any videos or any content regarding, Resistance. Resistance was a mode that pretty much was where you walk into an arena, and the arena allowed for you to take out enemies and gather points to be able to access specific areas using some kind of credit system. And then also that credit system allowed for you also to be able to open a loot chest in order to have a high chance of getting some of the really good loot in the game. And not only could you get just, good loot, you could get some of the best loot in the game, including exotics as well. This is what made Resistance, quite fun to play and interesting, because not only did you have to go in there, you could farm it over and over again in order to complete some gear sets that were classified, which are basically, some of the best items that were in the game, or even some of the exotics that could be dropped from the chest, and you can share with other people. Now that I've explained what Resistance was in a very short form, I think that's the concept that we're going to see in Skyscraper. As of the recording of this video, I have not seen anything about it or heard, or do I know, so I'm just basically hypothesizing, because I think that's what we're going to see because of the rumors and everything that the development team kind of talked about initially, which is something that was leaked on Reddit, that this is like an unending mode where you're continuing to reach different floors and face different challenges. And Resistance, you had to face different challenges, including environmental challenges. All right. That's just basically what, this kinds of mode will look like when the game drops, if they follow that pattern of Resistance. So this whole thing with the Skyscraper, what is it going to look like? Is it going to be good? Is it going to be a trashy piece of content? And, if it's going to be dropped, what are the things that Division players will want to see when it actually lands in the game? I have 3 things that I feel like will make it worth playing for players, because I know a lot of people are excited to play new content in the game. There's been a content drought, and the raid has not appealed to a lot of people because of the situations that have surrounded it, and just because of the the entire barrier to getting 8 people to coordinate and all that stuff. It just doesn't really appeal a lot to the community, and I don't think we'll be getting any raids in this game henceforth. I hope we never get any raids from anything that Massive ever does. They're better at doing short burst missions and all that. So the very first thing that this so-called Skyscraper mode must have, and agents in the game want to see, is they want to see quality. Now, when I say quality, I mean a package that actually has some breadth and depth to it. Not just something that's, slightly minimal, or something that, is just kind of cut out of a very good mode that it could be. We're talking something that is as deep and as, interesting as Survival was. Now, I say Survival, and I'm not saying Underground, because Survival had a dynamic aspect to it. It did have a PvP aspect, and they've already said that PvP is not coming, to the game in regard to changes anytime soon. They haven't confirmed anything. But at least Survival's PvE was good enough for you as an agent to be able to experience a whole lot of things, including an environmental aspect of the game that was working against you, a timed aspect of the game that was also working against you, and also surprises and enemy aspect, and even you being kind of underpowered because of the circumstances surrounding you. That's how Survival was packaged. It was so good that agents right now are asking if there could be a survival game that's, a survival mode that's released in the Division 2, and the developers, through one of their, community managers who's no longer working with them, said that there was no confirmation of or no discussions of a survival game. And so we're not going to be seeing survival anytime soon that I know of. But at least if Skyscraper has the quality that survival brought to the Division 1, especially at a time like this, when the Division 1 had a content drought and we didn't know what we were going to do, I feel like players are going to engage in that mode. The second thing is the reward system. If you were listening at the beginning of the video, I talked about the potential of people going into resistance mode from the Division 1, which was a spawning wave of enemies. And at certain points, you could access certain chests and caches using credits you get from enemy NPCs that you've taken out to open these, caches, and you have an opportunity to gain some of the best rewards in the game. And I think rewards was the biggest deal that people played Resistance for, because you went into Resistance with a group of 2, 3 were the kind of the best combinations to go with. A 4-man group was not the most efficient. It was kind of longer and more difficult. So people kind of found the balance that a 2 or a 3-man group allowed for you to be able to farm those chests more effectively and efficiently, and you could get some of the best items in the game. You could get some really good gear sets, and you could get some exotics. So I think in this Skyscraper mode, perhaps the different levels that you're reaching, there needs to be a chest that you're kind of fighting to get to at a specific level. So maybe on the 7th floor or the 5th floor, there's a chest that you can open, and the chest is guaranteed to drop, something really good. This is where I think players are going to sit there daily. If anything, just farm their way through the 5th floor over and over and over again in order to get the drops that they want. And I think even adding a new exotic or a series of new exotics that are now, attainable for players, that is not exclusive to some raid or locked behind some random content, is even going to make it better. How about if those items that have been in the Operation Dark Hours raid, how about if those items are actually put in this Skyscraper mode, namely the Eagle Bearer? A lot of people want to get the Eagle Bearer, and they have not had the opportunity to play the Operation Dark Hours raid. Now, yes, I know there are different platforms to go and play the raid, but what if the Skyscraper mode just subverted that and put that in its loot pool? Hey, I think a lot of people will be happy to jump back in, and even if for anything, to get that Eagle Bearer or have the opportunity and the chance to get that weapon. And that's what I think rewards will come to. Now, one big issue too that needs to be resolved, and they talked about wanting to resolve this, is the fact that the rainbow loot system is still diminishing the relevancy of the loot. And until they address that, come their so-called stream that they've planned on a state of the game for, I think, August 26th, until they address it very well and actually listen to what the player base is saying more meticulously, I don't think players are going to be satisfied. Because when you want to get new gear to upgrade your items, or you want to kind of step up, the build that you have, you want to have, some options that are there, because, right now Rainbow Loot is really kicking a lot of farming, in the tail. People can't really farm, happily, because they have to deal with all of the complications and, the different gear that will roll all kinds of weird stuff. So these things need to be changed in order to make this new mode rewarding. And then finally, the last aspect of this resistance, or whatever, Skyscraper mode, whatever you want to call it, that I think players would love to see, is that it is actually interesting to play. Now, when I say interesting to play, I mean it should not be brain dead content that you just sit there and you never really get any kind of, I would say adrenaline rush, or even any kind of suspense or high stakes that go along with it. And the reason I'm saying this is because you don't want to put yourself in a situation like we had in Dragon's Nest. Dragon's Nest seemed like an intricate, incursion. The very first few areas were very, very interesting to play, very high stakes, very tough. You had all these bosses, and I'm talking about the OG Dragon's Nest, not before they nerfed, all the enemies. This is when the enemies were hitting hard, and you needed some good support stations from, Reclaimer. And I mean, you still did, but this is when your entire team's life depended on it. That was high stakes in the middle of the mission. But what happened with, Dragon's Nest from the Division 1, and by the way, this is an incursion, a mission from Division 1, was when you got to the boss was just this brain dead sit down and cover and drop your support stations and shoot bad guys type deal that didn't really stand out, if you get what I mean. And so it faces the risk in a Division 2 game that we're going to get a mode that doesn't really, feel interesting in that sense. So there are ways that they can make the game interesting. They can do a lot of random things. They can do random spawns with hunters, even agents, all kinds of different things that will come at you as, you're progressing. And they can make it randomized. I think randomization is the best, because that way it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to kind of figure out the pattern. And the randomization can come perhaps at higher levels. Maybe you farm your way all the way through like floor number 11. You get in the elevator. This is how the concept would be. And, from floor 11 upwards, it's just a random barrage of enemy NPCs. It could be legendary, Black Tusk. It could be agents that show up. You don't know what's going to show up after you pass a certain threshold, and anything can come at you. And I think this is where players are going to gain some form of enjoyment and some level of testing their skill on the fly. And so there are a lot of things that can be done for Skyscraper to be really good. But I think these three things are going to be very central for a lot of agents, for them to want to even engage in this. Because think about it, they put some really good quality in this game where, they bring some really nice environmental aspects, some really good design, just non-buggy mode, all those things that really, go after this game in a terrible way. And if they make it rewarding and make it interesting where players are on their toes every time, I think we're going to have a mode that, we can basically appreciate for a while to come. And I think they need to add some new loot to the pool to make it worth playing, because if there's nothing new to farm, then I don't want to see any backpack trophies. Oh my gosh, please. All right, that's it from me. I just wanted to make this video. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you so much for your time and audience. I appreciate you guys very much, and hopefully we'll see in another video. Peace.